The massive orange circle of the sunset cast the last of its warmth across the field. The barely warm rays broke through the distant foliage of scattered trees and frequent shrubs. Malicopo worked his way through the nearly shoulder-high cassava crop, the leaves brushing against him as he passed. On his shoulder, a tuft of cloth cushioned the weight of his prized garden hoe. It was more than a tool, it was a treasure, gifted to him by his cousin, Bwalia, during a rare visit to the city a few years back. The day's labor had been relentless, but rewarding. The morning began with a walk to the well, a sturdy clay pot balanced on his head as he fetched the day's drinking water. Then came the trek to the river, where he gathered bath water. Along the way, he set traps near the bushy thickets, hoping to snare a rabbit or bush rat for the evening stew. His eldest son, Kalima, would later check the traps for any catch. By mid-morning, Malicopo was back at the maize and sweet potato fields, his hands and the sharp edge of his hoe attacking stubborn weeds. The fields demanded constant attention. The rhythmic sound of the hoe striking the ground was interspersed with moments of vigilance as Malicopo scanned the soil for signs of mole activity, rats, and snakes. These burrowing pests, with their labyrinth of tunnels, could ruin an entire crop if left unchecked. When he spotted fresh mounds, he swiftly set up barriers and traps, a mix of traditional ingenuity and lessons learned from visits to the farming college in the city. As the sun climbed higher, Maluba joined him briefly, carrying a calabash of cool water and a small meal of roasted groundnuts and dried cassava. Together, they discussed the evening's celebration. It was their turn to host the villagers' weekly gathering, a time for storytelling, dancing, and the sharing of a communal meal. Malicopo felt a sense of pride as he moved from the maize to the sweet potatoes. His decision to diversify from the usual corn, soybeans, and other legumes commonly grown by the villagers was paying off. The idea had come from observing urban farmers during his visits to the city. There, he absorbed techniques and strategies simply by engaging with local growers near the farming college. His innovations were slowly gaining traction among the villagers under his chief's jurisdiction. They were beginning to see the benefits of varying the crops they plant to ensure year-round food security. But tonight, his thoughts weren't on the farm. The sky was deepening to a soft indigo, and the cool of the evening beckoned. The weekly celebration was to be held at his central round hut, and there was still much to do. He quickened his pace, eager to return home. Kalima, his son, and Machenga, his nephew, escaped the tiling today while running errands for Maluba and her preparation chores. At the hut, the smell of simmering stew and grilled goat meat greeted him. Maluba was busy over the clay stove and fire logs, stirring a pot of thick cassava porridge and instructing the help with shouts and hand gestures. The children scurried about, carrying small wooden stools and arranging them around the fire pit outside. The evening's festivities would soon begin, and the sound of drums and laughter would fill the air. Malicopo smiled, his heart full of quiet satisfaction. Another day of toil was ending, and did not suffer from the diversion. The joy of community activity awaited. He grabbed the bucket of river water and retreated to the privacy of the backyard, where he would bathe quickly in the grass-walled enclosure. The cool water was a welcome relief, washing away the dust and sweat of the fields. Soon, he would join Maluba in welcoming their guests, ready to share stories and laughter under the vast canopy of the starlit sky. Bwalia arrived in Kitwe at just 15 years old, wide-eyed and full of ambition. The bustling town, with its constant hum of activity, was a world apart from the quiet village he had left behind. For 6 months, he worked as a load carrier at the main inner-city bus station, a sprawling hub that never seemed to sleep. Day and night, buses arrived and departed, their horns blaring, engines rumbling, and passengers shuffling through the chaos. Bwalia would haul bags, crates, and bundles for travelers, his wiry frame bending under the weight, but never breaking. The coins needed stout pockets to handle the coin revenue. He learned to convert these to paper money at the food stands and the local bus route conductors. He found rest wherever he could, sometimes curled up on a wooden bench, other times stretched out in the back of a truck. The constant movement of the station became a strange comfort, a rhythm he quickly adapted to. After months of toiling at the station, an opportunity presented itself: work for a white office worker in his home. For the next 2 years, Bwalya lived in a modest workers' unit behind the main house. The building, with its asbestos roof, was a stark contrast to the thatched huts of his childhood. It was cooler during the rainy season and didn't creak under the wind. The sound of raindrops was ever so hypnotizing and rivaled the grinding monotone of the trucks at the station. His duties here were diverse: laundry, gardening, house cleaning, and sometimes serving as an escort on shopping and hunting trips. On occasion, when the female house help was unavailable, he took on childcare duties or even prepared simple meals. It was during this time that his uncle visited him. Malicopo was impressed at how Bwalya had matured. Of note was that he had survived the adventurous nature of the young arrivals to the city. The alcohol and marijuana had its way with those who were not disciplined. Even local brews from distant villages were sold in some of the shelters and house units near the markets. Knowing the hazards of wrong or treacherous female escapades, the Malicopo spoke warmly about the importance of building a family, encouraging Bwalya to consider marriage. Bwalya had always imagined marriage as a distant prospect, a milestone for the future. But his uncle's words planted a seed, as he began to acknowledge the dominant and recurrent physical pressures past puberty.